Hi everyone, this is Untouchable Facts. Today, we will be recapping on a movie called A Cure for Wellness. Please stay tuned and enjoy the video. In the opening scene, a man named Morris is burning the midnight oil. In his office, he begins to encounter torment in his chest. Morris goes to get some water when the aggravation deteriorates here. Then, at that point, experiences a coronary failure and implodes on the floor as he kicks the bucket. We meet Mr. Lockhart on a train headed to work. He is very much into his work and seems rude and careless to others. Lockhart goes to a meeting with the higher-ups Hank Green, Wallace, and Wilson. They review a note sent by the company's CEO, Roland Pembroke. Was supposed to be away for 2 weeks at a spa in the Swiss Alps, but has not returned since, and as the note indicates, he appears to have had some sort of breakdown. Green shows Lockhart in a legal document he handed, and that is now under investigation. Lockhart is ordered to bring Pembroke back, except if he has any desire to confront the punishment for his activity. In a flashback, we see Lockhart visiting his older mother at her retirement home. She conveys a little music box with a ballet dancer that she says is dreaming, just she doesn't have a clue about that. She is in a fantasy. Lockhart's MON passes on, also is incinerated before his flight, and he kept a ballet dancer after showing up in Switzerland. Lockhart takes a ride from a cab driver named Enrico. While riding up the slope to the spa, a resident throws a drink at the vehicle, and Rico makes sense of that. The townspeople have a terrible history with individuals that dwell on the slope. There is a 200-year-old story of a nobleman who lived on the land the spa was built. He was a racist, a fascist, and he believed that his bloodline was superior, and so he wanted to protect his bloodline by marrying his sister. After learning she was infertile, the Baron began performing experiments on the villagers and peasants, killing them, which led to them revolting and attacking his castle, destroying most of it and burning them. Aaron and his sister, alive Dr. Heinrich, farmers' ancestors, then at that point bought the land for clinical and recovery use, focused on the presumed rejuvenative properties of the sacred waters and the enormous normal spring situated inside. The actual mountain Diafama then transformed it into a well-being spa. Lockhart shows up at the spa, yet visiting hours have quite recently finished. Lockhart leaves inside Rico and advises him to take him to a lodging to settle on a telephone decision, since he has no assistance on the slope en route to the inn. A deer runs out from the forest and into the street, and Rico raises a ruckus around town which stalls out in the windshield and causes the car to swerve off the road and crash into a ditch. Lockhart awakens 3 days later in a room at the spa. He meets Dr. Heinrich Farmer, who is the spa's chief, who calls attention to that he endured a wrecked leg because of the mishap. Farmer says he advised Green about the mishap. He tells Lockhart to test the spa's medicines during his visit. He is put to remain in a room where he hears the latrine handle shaking without anyone else. Lockhart likewise takes a beverage of water and finds a parasitic animal drifting in the glass. He tracks down Pembroke in the bathhouse, where he takes a dip. Lockhart urges Pembroke to return home with him. Pembroke shows up fine and not keen on leaving. Lockhart meets 3 patients, forthcoming slope runner and Victoria Watkins. Specifically enjoys crossword puzzles. The 3 of them all seem perfectly pleased with their treatments. Lockhart then meets Hannah, a young woman who considers herself a special case. She and several other patients plus Farmer and other staff members are frequently seen taking nutrient drops from a blue jug. Lockhart goes through treatment inside a water tank. The water tops off and the efficient tending to Lockhart gets occupied by a nurture. The tank then tops off with eels, making him alarmed. Lockhart rises and has his breathing cylinder pulled off by an eel. He almost suffocates until they open the tank and get him out without a moment to spare. He enlightens them concerning the eels, yet when they glimpse inside they don't see anything there. Lockhart is as yet persuaded about what he saw. He meets Mrs. Watkins outside. During their conversation he relays the story of the Baron to her. She seems to know the story well, having read and learnt about the history of the place. While doing crossword puzzles she is also familiar with the rumors surrounding the castle and the nobleman. She specifies that the spa was based on the stays of his palace. After the townspeople tortured, Watkins says that the nobleman's sister had effectively considered his youngster, and the child was cut out of the nobleman's sister's belly, then at that point tossed into the spring, yet it endured. Lockhart gives Hannah his ballet dancer puppet in return for a bicycle ride into town. The 2 go together. What's more, stop at a nearby bar. Lockhart purchases himself and Hannah beers and runs into Enrico, who survived the crash and was Given a new car with money that the spa gave him, Hannah stays to listen to music and do a dance by herself in front of the other patrons. Lockhart comes across a barn with a mute child who is drawing the castle fire. His father, Peter, approaches Lockhart. Lockhart asks questions regarding the spa and its history. Peter then goes to a cow that is ailing and ready to die. He cuts the cow's stomach open and out spills a stillborn calf and some meals. When Lockhart rejoins Hannah at the bar, Lockhart gets in touch with Green, who requests to realize what occurred with him. In Pembroke, Lockhart specifies that Farmer called them about the mishap. In any case, Green doesn't know anything about the mishap until Lockhart recently referenced it. He arranges Lockhart to get back to New York with Pembroke. Inside the following 24 hours, he sees a troublemaker moving close to her. Lockhart attempts to move him away from her. However, the troublemaker assaults Lockhart. He is saved by Farmer, who shows up to get Lockhart and Hannah that evening. Lockhart strolls into a room where he sees Hannah in a bath. He sees that it is full of eels. He awakens and acknowledges it was simply a fantasy. Lockhart's tooth comes free and he hauls it out himself. He carries it to a staff part who places it in water. Lockhart then heads out to keep searching for answers. He sneaks past the staff as he goes through several wings. He comes across one room where several patients, including Pembroke, are kept inside water tanks, showing up dead. When Lockhart attempts to get back to his room, he is viewed as by the overseer alongside Farmer and another staff part. Lockhart makes reference to the issue with his tooth. He is taken into a room, furthermore tied down as he has a drill forced through his front tooth. Lockhart gets away from the spa and heads into town to report Farmer's investigations to a police officer. Farmer and his staff member arrive to bring Lockhart back. Lockhart mentions the tanks and how he saw Pembroke. Pembroke then emerges alive and, while backing up Farmer's claims that Lockhart threatened Pembroke in saying he would bring him back to New York by force if necessary. Lockhart has no choice but to return with Farmer. After undergoing more treatments, Lockhart starts to act and think like Pembroke, and that he believes he is not well and must stay for a cure. He has a moment of clarity while writing a note to his employers where he thinks to himself that no man can unsee the truth. Meanwhile, Hannah is using the pool and, as her first period, eel starts swimming near her, but then they start swimming in an ideal circle around her. Lockhart then breaks a glass and uses a shard to cut open his cast, uncovering that his leg was never broken. He moreover tracks down an underground region with a pool where dead bodies are unloaded in and taken care of. To eels, one of those dead bodies occurs to be Mrs. Watkins. Lockhart experiences the guardian who assaults him until Lockhart makes steam blow in his face before he cudgels the overseer to death. Lockhart finds Hannah. She is overreacted and smacks Lockhart in the face. As he tries to help her, Hannah runs and finds Farmer in a room where he, the staff, and some patients are having dinner. Lockhart runs in and starts to tell everyone that Farmer is a liar and is the one responsible for everyone being sick due to whatever is in the water, which is responsible for making their teeth fall out. As a side effect, patients start to stand, which Lockhart thinks is in support of him, but they are all actually going against him. As they slowly approach him saying that they are unwell, they all crowd around Lockhart until he passes out. Lockhart wakes up in a chamber where he is stable. Farmer powers a cylinder down his throat and utilizations the eel-filled fluid to place into his body, where the eels sift through the nutrients that Farmer has. Generally, his patients take Lockhart has his teeth fixed and seems, by all accounts, to be changed just like the other patients. Trapped in a hallucination that he is unwell, Farmer tosses a party that evening with the patients and staff. He even gives Hannah another dress for the event. In his room, Lockhart begins to wake up as he ponders when Watkins filled him in about the barren. He finds a portrait that was taken a while after the fire. Lockhart breaks the portrait and uses a glass to magnify one subject in the picture, a man with wraps all around his face. It was the noble whose skin was scorched in the fire. What the picture didn't show was the man clasping hands with a bit young lady. It was Hannah. It shows up in some way that over such countless years she matured gradually into a young lady at the point when she ought to be dead. Lockhart then understands that the nobleman is Farmer. Also, Hannah is his girl. Farmer brings Hannah into a room by the bonding. In there, he has kept a representation of his sister, who is additionally Hannah's MOM. Farmer ties Hannah to the bed and prepares to undress her. Lockhart then interrupts Farmer. Lockhart and Farmer fight, wherein Farmer pulls off the skin from his face to reveal himself as the hideously scarred Baron. The vitamins he takes that he collects from the patients by forcing eels through their system have been keeping him and Hannah alive for well over a century to 100 years ago. He discovered that the eels that live and breed in the aquifer are a unique species. They could live up to 300 years. The aquifer prolonged their lives, but that same water isn't healthy for human consumption. After concentrating on them strongly, he found that driving the eels into an individual's stomach-related framework, also gathering the substance their bodies produce, makes the adolescent drawing out impacts of the water practical for human use. He kept himself, Hannah, and his faithful workers alive and imperishable for such a long time, so they might one day at any point return and proceed with the trials on individuals, this time under the camouflage of a well-being spa aimed at wealthy people. Hannah, of course, didn't know of any of this, as he kept her in the dark for so long. He intended to force her to conceive his child, bearing what he believes to be a master race, but all the biological tampering. The result, the vitamins had delayed the onset of puberty for her, until now. That is, Lockhart leads Farmer into a trap where he dropped a bunch of fuel, leading Lockhart to set a fire. Farmer catches fire and then sets fire to the curtains as he tries to extinguish himself. The fire then spreads up toward the rest of the castle. Lockhart attempts to rescue Hannah. He manages to get her hands free before Farmer grabs and throws him into a metal rack. Farmer kicks Lockhart down a flight of stairs to the eel pool. He lifts his head to see Pembroke's lifeless body in front of him. Farmer then drags him to the pool, about to feed him to the eels, but Hannah takes a digging tool and swings it down into Farmer's head. He staggers in reverse and falls into the pool to become dinner food. Lockhart and Hannah escape just as the patients and staff flee the burning castle. They take Hannah's bike and ride away. On the road, they are stopped by a car. Green Hollies and Wilson step out, ordering Lockhart to get in the car. When they ask about Pembroke, Lockhart says he is gone. They tell him to get in again, but he refuses. Hollies asks Lockhart what's wrong with him. Lockhart responds that he is feeling much better. He and Hannah continue riding away into the night with a vile smile framing on Lockhart's face.